A legendary Ethiopian goat herd named Kaldi discovered the coffee plant around 850 AD. The story goes that Kaldi noticed his goats were so energetic that they did not want to sleep at night. Intrigued by their behavior, Kaldi started looking at his goats more closely. He noticed how the goats were eating bright red berries of a certain bush. Curious by the berries, Kaldi chewed several berries and felt more energetic than ever. The goat herd was so amazed by his finding that he brought the berries to the closest Islamic monastery and presented his findings to a monk. The monk disapproved of the berries and threw them into a fire pit. The fire roasted the berries, quenching an incredible aroma in the monastery. The monk was so amazed by the indulging aroma that he ordered bystanders to take out the berries from the fire, grind them, and dissolve the powder in hot water, creating the world's first cup of coffee. The monk found that the drink kept him alert at night and began sharing his discovery of the energizing berries with other monks in the monastery. As word moved east and coffee reached the Arabian Peninsula, it began a journey that will bring these beans across the globe. Most people in the US, Britain, and Europe will associate the influence of Muslim cuisine with curry and kebab, but very few actually know of the Muslim origin of coffee. Coffee was first cultivated in the highland areas of the countries at the southern end of the Red Sea, Yemen and Ethiopia. Instead of eating the beans, the Yemenis boiled them, creating the famous drink of al-kahawa. Kahawa, which means coffee, originally meant wine. Sufi mystics in Yemen used coffee as an aid to concentration and even spiritual intoxication when they chanted the name of God. Coffee spread to the rest of the Muslims of Yemen and eventually to all the Muslim world through travelers, pilgrims, and traders. Historical sources show that coffee arrived in Europe through Italian links. The active trade between Venice, North Africa, and Egypt transported Muslim goods, including coffee, to the European port of Venice. After discovering the taste of coffee, Venetian merchants noticed the commercial potential and started its importation in 1570. But coffee wasn't for everybody. As with any new practice, the rich people were the first to indulge in this beverage. The public didn't even realize coffee's existence until years later when coffee was sold in Venice's markets. When coffee became widely available for the general public, coffee houses became popular. The first coffee houses of Venice opened in 1645, and by 1763, Venice had over 200 coffee outlets. Gaining popularity, coffee became the object of trade between Venice and Amalfi, Turin, Genoa, Milan, Florence, and Rome, from where it was transmitted to the rest of Europe. Coffee was popular among scholars, rich, and traders, but like many products imported from Muslims, coffee had a religious rejection. Pope Clement VIII was pressed by his advisors to ban coffee consumption. However, after the Pope tasted it, he declared, "This Satan's drink is so delicious that it would be a shame to let the non-believers have exclusive use of it." The Pope approved and blessed coffee because it appeared better for people than alcoholic beverages. The Pope's approval was the green light for the consumption of the beverage, opening the door for coffee to reach all European houses. Coffee houses gained popularity in Britain between the 17th and 18th centuries. Coffee houses were often used as relaxation venues, usually associated with reading newspapers, playing games, smoking tobacco, and drinking tea and coffee. They were also venues for political and religious debates on hot issues affecting the population. Coffee houses were dubbed penny universities, describing the social view of these premises as knowledge centers, a sign that they were frequented by students, scholars, artists, and people of talent. The penny was used to refer to the price of a cup of coffee. The spread of coffee in Paris came after 1669. During that year, Paris received Suleiman Aga, the ambassador of Sultan Muhammad IV, who brought along with him a considerable quantity of coffee beans. During his stay in France, the ambassador firmly established the drinking habit among the Parisians. 2 years later, an Armenian merchant set up the first coffee house in Paris, but without success. Other Armenians and some Persians tried their luck, but with little success either. Finally, a couple of Frenchmen opened spacious and elegant premises decorated with radiant work, tapestry, glass, and picturesque decor, selling coffee with tea, chocolate, and other refreshments. They attracted Parisians from wealthy merchants, people of fashion, and men of letters. Soon, the number of coffee houses in Paris alone exceeded 300. Coffee began to replace the common breakfast drink beverages of the time, beer and wine. Those who drank coffee instead of alcohol began the day alert and energized. And not surprisingly, the quality of their work was greatly improved. After Italy, England, and France, the rest of Europe followed and adopted the new exquisite black beverage. The Dutch established large plantations of coffee in their colony of Java in Indonesia. From there, the Dutch managed a successful business as they became importers and distributors of coffee beans to Europe. It is believed that coffee planting is attributed to the Dutch. As France started colonizing many parts of the Americas, they began introducing coffee to many parts of the continent, starting with the island of Martinique and the colonies of West Indies, where first French coffee plantations were founded. In the mid-16th century, coffee was brought by the British to New Amsterdam, later called New York. Even though coffee houses rapidly began to appear, tea continued to be the favorite drink in the New World, but that lasted until the year 1773, when the colonists went mad against a heavy tax on tea imposed by King George III. The riot, known as the Boston Tea Party, would forever change the American drinking preference to coffee.